Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and it is Thursday morning, 6 o'clock here in the morning, May the 6th, Calgary, Alberta. I'm so happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I have the chat room open if anybody would like to come and sit in there and, hang out this morning and or this evening, wherever you're at. And we're going to continue on with the topic of child sexual abuse. We actually finished up an article yesterday. We're looking at the physical effects of child sexual abuse on children from healthyplace.com. And today I want to look at the psychological effects of child sexual abuse on children. It's written by a healthyplace.com staff writer. This article is written in 2008, but it doesn't matter because the information is still very much relevant. And they last updated this article September 22nd, 2009, and that is www.healthyplace.com. And that's where I pulled this article up from. And it's good to talk about this stuff. We really have to. Child sexual abuse is not going away unless we actually get something done. And really the only way to get something done and to change this and to stop child sexual abuse is to get the word out, start getting some awareness and prevention going on, and start getting some funding put in place to stop this. And really, it's going to take all of us, every single one of us, to make a difference, for children today and tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the next generation. So that's why I'm so happy to be able to do this show and just to be able to be one more voice out there with everybody else who's out there working diligently, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to stop child abuse of all kinds. And especially child sexual abuse. It's just, children should be allowed to be children. And I think unless we start standing up for children's rights, it's just going to continue on. And so that's why I'm just happy to be able to do this show. And I'm just a private citizen. I don't hold any counseling certificates, therapist certificates. It's not a professional show. I just pull up information off of the web and take a look at it and see if it's really something good that people can benefit from. And if you're a survivor of child abuse, then I'm so glad to be able to join you and just to let you know that you're not alone and that there's so many of us out there. It's so sad that there's so many of us out there, but we're not alone, and we don't deserve to suffer in silence and suffer on our own. And so that's why I'm doing this show, one child abuse survivor to another, because I know there's so many of us out there. And I suffered on my own in silence for so many years, and now that I'm starting to reach out, I really feel I've come a long way in my healing just because I've been able to connect with people who have been through a lot of the same things that I've been through and understand what it's like, and it's just so good to be able to support people as well, right? It's very healing to be able to be there for people and to be able to support people as well as getting some support. So that's why I like this show, and I'm so glad to be able to do this. And if you're a young person listening, under the age of 18, especially really young, you might want to get an adult to listen to the show with you. There's a lot of adult content on here, and I don't know where the Blog Talk players are now. Been placed around different places, and if you just happen to catch the show, if you're a young person, the topics of abuse can be kind of scary, especially if you haven't heard very much about it. It might be confusing, and so you might want to have an adult listen to this with you to make sure it's okay for you to listen to, and then you can get help with questions. And and I fight for child rights. That's what I'm doing. I stand up for children. I'm trying to fight against abuse with everybody else out there, all the advocates around the world who are standing up and fighting for child rights. And so you want to keep yourself safe, and this is a very unsafe world. But fear won't get you anywhere, but education will. And awareness and prevention, just to learn how to keep yourself safe while you're online, you need to know that. And young people especially, if no one's talked to you about online safety, then, you want to go get online, start typing into your browser online safety and online safety for children and whatnot. There's some great websites out there, and you can get some good information on how to keep yourself safe, how to keep your friends safe. You can pass that on to your friends, and then, you won't end up in the hands of a child sexual predator. There's millions of them out there actually trying to get a hold of children every day. So you don't want to be one of those kids that are, victimized by a child sexual predator. So make sure you keep yourself safe. You want to go on to have a good life, a healthy life. And so if you're listening to this show, you get the information and learn how to keep yourself safe when you're online. It's so important. So, listen at your own discretion, everybody. This is I cover every single topic related really to abuse, of all kinds, whether it's child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, you name it. We're talking about it. So you do have to kind of listen at your own discretion. It is ultimately your decision to listen to the show. And you know the topic. I always give the topic when I start talking about the show and what we're going to be talking about. And so it's so important that if you think the topic will bother you, you have to turn the show off and you have to listen at your own discretion, because we all need to know what's good for us to listen to. So that's when I ask everyone to make the right decision for themselves. And if it's going to bother you, please turn off the show. And so we'll get right into this. We have about 25 minutes left, and we're looking at the effects of child sexual abuse on children. This is the psychological and emotional impact of sexual abuse on children from healthyplace.com and www.healthyplace.com. www.healthyplace.com. And I'm just going to read right from the page. You can pull this article up if you like and read right along with me. It says here, child sexual abuse has been reported up to 80,000 times a year, but the number of unreported instances is far greater because the children are afraid to tell anyone what has happened, and the legal procedure for validating an episode is difficult. The problem should be identified, the abuse stopped, and the child should receive professional help. The long-term emotional and psychological damage of sexual abuse can be devastating to the child. Child sexual abuse can take place within the family, by a parent, step-parent, sibling, or other relative, or outside the home, for example, by a friend, neighbor, child care person, teacher, or stranger. When sexual abuse has occurred, a child can develop a variety of distressing feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. Psychological trauma of child sexual abuse. This is where they go on to talk about, what happens psychologically to children when they do experience sexual abuse, right? No child is psychologically prepared to cope with repeated sexual stimulation. Even a 2 or 3-year-old who cannot know the sexual activity is wrong will develop problems resulting from the inability to cope with the overstimulation, right? It says the child of 5 or older who knows and cares for the abuser becomes trapped between affection or loyalty for the person and a sense that the sexual activities are terribly wrong. If the child tries to break away from the sexual relationship, the abuser may threaten the child with violence or loss of love. Excuse me. When sexual abuse occurs within the family, the child may fear the anger, jealousy, or shame of other family members, or be afraid the family will break up if the secret is told. And that's just it. There's so many reasons why children might not tell, especially if they've been threatened and their lives have been threatened, or if they excuse me, if the actual abuser threatens the other family members' lives and says, okay, if you tell, I'm going to kill so and so in the family, or if you tell, I'll kill all the family, or things like this, right? Also, they might really, the children might really love their parents, love their whole family, and the abuser would say, well, if you tell, look what's going to happen. We'll all have to break up and have to leave each other, and we'll all be away from each other. And of course, that's very traumatizing for a child, right? So there's many reasons, and manipulation. Really, that's all it is. It's manipulation by the abuser to get the child to not tell. And so children, they're not aware that they would be better off to tell and get some help rather than suffer through the abuse, right? But they're not old enough to make that decision. So that is why it's so important that everyone step up and be the protection that these children need. You know what I mean? If you have children in your life, and especially young children, and you're a parent, or if you know people who have lots of young kids, you want to be the eyes and ears and really the protector of all those children in your life, and make sure that they're not being abused in any way, whether it's sexual or physical, emotional, verbal, psychologically abused. It doesn't matter. Abuse hurts. It doesn't matter what kind of abuse it is. It all hurts, and it all causes a lot of damage. Ultimately, it causes the same damage. You know what I mean? It's a loss of innocence, and it's a loss of that child's happiness as a child to grow normally and to have good interactions with people and to enjoy their life, and it's not their fault. They're just put into the abuse is put on them. So abuse of any kind is wrong, and it all has to stop. But I think especially child sexual abuse, this is ridiculous. It's sad, but it's true. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused in some manner before the age of 18. Whether it's sexual touching, unwanted sexual touching, or being made to watch pornography or to the actual act of sexual molestation or incest or rape or whatever. It's so wrong. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys. So you're in a room of 30 women. Well, like 10 of you will have probably been in that situation and suffered some child sexual abuse under the age of 18. And if you're in a room of 60 men, 10 out of those 60 men will be the victims and survivors of child sexual abuse under the age of 18. That's too many. 1 is too many. 1 out of a million is too many. I'm sorry, but when you look at the statistics, it's just crazy. And that's why people really got to stop pretending that this is not happening and stop pretending that it only happens in the movies. Stop pretending that, it wouldn't happen in my family. There's no way. Stop pretending that it's not happening down the street at your neighbor's house. And I think people just really don't like to face reality. And I know a lot of people, it's very hard. It's hurtful to hear about abuse and to hear about what's going on with children. You start looking in the paper and you see these reports, of people, fathers raping their 4-year-old kids and 3-year-old kids and 2-year-old kids. It's kind of like, it's disturbing. It's very disturbing. And so most people in the mainstream society don't like to look at those articles, and they find it very uncomfortable and, and disheartening. So they tend to skip over it and think about what they're going to do later on for, as far as shopping goes. And they tend to not put themselves in that child's place and say, man, oh my God, just think about what that poor child was going through. And then they tend to not think that they can possibly even make a difference in their own community or even in their own families and lives to be a part of the answer and be a part of what needs to happen to change this whole situation for children, right? And I mean, we're all guilty of it. There's a lot of us advocates out here who fight for this, to stop child abuse, and we fight to do this. We have to sleep sometimes, you know what I mean, and we do have to eat, but I'm telling you, our lives are devoted to stopping child abuse, but at one point in my lifetime, I was sitting on the couch on the sidelines, not getting involved, and I hated what I was seeing on the news. I hated what I was seeing in the paper, and especially growing up the way that I did, sexually molested as a child. I had a lot of physical abuse from my mother and every other kind of abuse from my mother, and my dad too as well, but mostly from my mom. But the thing is growing up like that, I wasn't ready to come out publicly, and it took me until I was in 40s to make that decision to go public and actually to get involved. And that's sad because growing up in that kind of a situation, if you've been abused as a child, you know how horrible it is, and that it's going on everywhere, right? So, but people that have grown up in these happy lives and just experienced normal childhoods and have just normal lives and stuff like that, and who haven't known anybody or really talked to anybody about child abuse or talk to a survivor of child abuse, they have a real hard time with it because they look at it and it doesn't affect them because they can't empathize with that child. They can't empathize with what it would be like to be thrown into walls and beaten on incessantly with belts and other weapons and punched with fists and kicked with feet, and they just can't put themselves in those children's shoes. And they can't think about what it would be like to be that little 4-year-old being raped by her father, or a 4-year-old boy being raped by his father, right? Or mother, right? Mothers do sexually abuse their children as well. So the whole thing is we really have to, as a society, start putting ourselves in these children's shoes, first of all, and then start thinking about, hey, what can I do? I have one day a week where I'm not so busy. Maybe I could volunteer somewhere. Maybe there's something I could do in my own community that I could get involved with. You don't have to be abused to get involved. You don't have to be a survivor of child abuse to get involved. And you don't have to be a professional. You just have to be a concerned citizen who wants to help. And there's no shame or stigma in it. You know what I mean? I'm very, very happy to be doing what I'm doing. I was miserable before I started reaching out and getting some help. I was miserable before I started to make this jump to stop child abuse. And now I'm so happy because I realized that this is what I should have been doing all along. But I was so devastated by the abuse that I suffered. I was actually still considering ending my life until about 3 years ago. So after that, I decided to fight to live instead of fight to kill myself. I realized that, hey, There's kids suffering right now, and I know exactly what they're going through. And why am I sitting on the couch here feeling sorry for myself? And when I know that they need help. So that's my this has been a huge full circle for me, and to be able to get involved. But you don't have to be a survivor of child abuse to get involved. You just have to care about children, and want to make a difference in this world, right? If we don't change this thing for children, it's just going to continue on. The cycle of abuse will continue on. It's just horrible. So that's the whole issue, right? We can all get involved. I don't have children, but the thing is I feel very much that the world's children need protection, and I'm an adult, and so really I have a voice. I have a voice and I have resources. I don't have very many resources, but let me tell you, I have a voice and I can talk and I can get the word out and start spreading the word and getting the word out that this is happening. It's not some sort of made-up movie or pretend thing. Children are being killed at the hands of their parents and caregivers every day, being beaten to death and murdered. They're being sexually abused all the time. This is going on. It's not something that's just in the movies, Child exploitation, children being sold in sex slavery rings. You know what I mean? This is happening, people. This is real, and that's the sad part. I think that's why most people don't want to face it. They want to just watch the movies. They rather pretend it's some sort of oh wow, what a good movie that was. Boy, that was scary. Instead of looking at the situation and realizing that there are so many people caught up in the sex trade, and most of them, actually quite a lot of them are young children and young adults, young teenagers, young adults. And this is going on, people. There's people out there who are using and abusing children all over the world. And we really have to make a difference. We have to try to do whatever we can with what we have, and with the time that we have left. However much time we have on this earth. That's what I decided I'm going to put 100% into it for the rest of my life until I leave this place. Because why not? I have nothing better to do. I've watched enough movies for 20 people. I've done my own my own thing for years and years. Worked on my own career, did lots of cool things in my lifetime, even though I was abused as a child. I, thank God, went on to not do drugs and got myself together pretty good. I was just still suffering emotionally and in my heart, from all the abuse that I suffered. But now, I'm finding healing and hope and everything, and I just have nothing better to do with my time than go out there and try to make a difference with all the other advocates that are out there and stand up and say, hey, we need to make some changes. This is right. So I hope that everybody will get involved, in whatever way that you can, and especially look out for the children in your own lives. If everybody was doing that, we could stop a lot of the abuse that's going on. But we have to make the phone call. If you know and suspect that, if you know abuse is happening, you're actually breaking the law by not making the phone call. But if you suspect abuse, you need to make the phone call. Because, in my case, we were not removed from the home. We should have been. But they don't always remove children from the home. But they do try to get the parents help, and they do make sure that the child is safe in that home. And then if the child is not safe, of course, they have to remove them. My parents were pretty good at manipulating people, and we were not removed from the home, and then we left the country and got out from underneath the eyes of the social workers and the system. So there we go. The abuse just continued. But there's so many children out there who could use a hand right now, and really they are counting on us to be watching out for them. So it's so important that we do, right? Take a look around at the kids in our own lives and get them some help if they need help, right? It's just crazy what's going on. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys. That just tells you everybody knows a child who's being abused. You know what I mean? So, but we need to start looking for the signs and symptoms and learn these things and learn how to report it properly. If it's not reported properly, the child could end up back in the home, killed at the hands of their parents or caregivers, or just the abuse will just continue, right? And that's the whole issue. We have to know that there's ways to do this stuff, proper ways to do it, and we have to know how to report it and how to do that right. So it's so important. It says here, a child who is the victim of prolonged sexual abuse usually develops low self-esteem, a feeling of worthlessness, and abnormal or distorted view of sex. The child may become withdrawn or mistrustful of adults and can become suicidal. And this has happened. Children have committed suicide. I've seen the reports in the paper. Horrible, absolutely horrible. Why would a child be thinking of taking their own life? You know what I mean? It has to be so bad for a young child to think about killing themselves. I used to tell my mom to go ahead and kill me. I actually didn't have any thoughts of killing myself as a young child. hoping that my mom would kill me so I could be out of the agony and the misery and the pain and the fear and trying to cope, And I just was dead. I thought, okay, no, you go ahead and kill me because then I'll be out of here. You know what I mean? But I wasn't considering killing myself. Can you imagine how bad it is for children who are their lives are so messed up and so bad that they kill themselves? This happens. How can a young person, 6, 7-year-old, know how to kill themselves? There has to be something completely wrong. So that somebody should have saw the signs, and somebody should have stepped in and intervened for that child. And it's usually the grandparents or somebody in the family who knows but aren't saying anything. And that just burns my, what? Because, these children are suffering, and how a person can sit by and watch this and not do anything about it really just bothers me. Let me tell you, it bothers me because that is so wrong, right? Knowing the abuse is happening and not doing anything about it. These children, they cannot stand up for themselves. They do need help. And so obviously they're going to have a distorted view of sex. It's going to affect their adult lives, right? They have low self-esteem. They feel worthless, They don't trust people. They can become suicidal. So hello everyone, I'm back. I don't know if I got dropped off my show. So that's too bad. I lost my switchboard. The whole thing went down, so I had to get back in there. Sorry about that. And so I don't know if the chat room is still up and still working or not, but sometimes we actually lose the chat room when that happens. And so, but yeah, no, that's sad. But every now and then you do get dropped from your show, and I'm just not sure, like the connection, you lose connection, right? It's all done there. Things happen, but that's okay. We'll continue on. So some sexually abused children become child abusers or prostitutes or have other serious problems when they reach adulthood, and it would be no wonder. You grow up being abused sexually as a child. Well, of course, you develop these you develop behaviors that are associated with that, of course, And so a lot of children become, child prostitutes. I actually saw lots of child prostitutes, especially in Las Vegas. When I went to Vegas with my parents, and well, not with my parents, but my mom and my older sister. Used to go to Vegas quite a bit. And then when I was older, I went a couple of times, and I don't like that place because it does encourage a lot of child prostitutes. There's child prostitutes all over Las Vegas, and it's horrible, absolutely horrible. I can't believe that it's allowed to go on. But these young people, they run away from home, or they're put there on purpose by their parents to make money for them. Basically sold into sex slave trade. You know what I mean? So this is ridiculous. But the thing is it doesn't happen, and then they go on as adults to possibly indulge in prostitution, and that's not every single child who's been abused would do that. But some do, and then some, go on to sexually abuse their own children, which is horrible, and because they just don't know it's wrong. You know what I mean? If they grow up like that and their whole lives are spent with people that are doing that, well, then they're, they don't think there's anything wrong with it unless somebody tells them there's something wrong with it. You know what I mean? It's because they're brainwashed. Because kids learn, there's learned behaviors. That's how kids learn. They learn from their environments and what's going on in their lives and who's teaching them. You know what I mean? So if a child is sexually abused and especially and doesn't get any help, and it goes on for years, of course they're going to learn all kinds of distorted behaviors, you know what I mean? And then take those into their adult lives, right? So it's just so important to get help for these children, right? And it says, often there are no obvious physical signs of child sexual abuse. Some signs can only be detected on physical exam by a physician. And we were going through all that on the physical effects of child sexual abuse on children. And, there are signs, and we do have to be aware that there are signs. And here's some of this. It says, sexually abused children may develop the following, and they list off quite a few here. Unusual interest in or avoidance of all things of a sexual nature, sleep problems or nightmares, depression or withdrawal from friends or family, seductiveness, statements that their bodies are dirty or damaged, or fear that there is something wrong with them, in their bodies, right? Refusal to go to school, delinquency, conduct problems, secretiveness, aspects of sexual molestation in drawings, games, and fantasies, unusual aggressiveness, or suicidal behavior. So these are just some of the things that a sexually abused child might develop along the way, right? And even abused children, it's just regular, I shouldn't call it regular, but just not sexual abuse, but just physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse will cause a lot of those things too. But it says here, child sexual abusers can make the child extremely fearful of telling, and only when a special effort has helped the child to feel safe can a child talk freely. If a child says that he or she has been molested, parents should try to remain calm and reassure the child that what happened was not their fault. Parents should seek a medical examination and psychiatric consultation. And it says here, parents can prevent or lessen the chance of sexual abuse by telling children that if someone tries to touch their body and do things that make them feel funny, say no to that person and tell the parent right away. Teaching children that respect does not mean blind obedience to adults and to authority. For example, don't tell children to always do everything the teacher or babysitter tells you to do. Right, because the teacher comes along and says, oh, well, I know that your parents, they want you to listen to and do exactly as I tell you to do, so you have to do what I say. And children, they don't know any better. They're like, well, okay, I guess my parents told me to do this, And it's just so bad, so bad. Parents need to become educated on what's going on and learn how to talk to their children about this stuff at age appropriateness and whatnot, right? So important. Encouraging professional prevention programs in the local school system. This is also another way that parents can prevent or lessen the chance of sexual abuse for children, right? And it says sexually abused children and their families need immediate professional evaluation and treatment. Child and adolescent psychiatrists can help abused children regain a sense of self-esteem. They can cope with feelings of guilt about the abuse and begin the process of overcoming the trauma. Such treatment can help reduce the risk that the child will develop serious problems as an adult. So that's the end of this article. Just short, but a pretty good article on the psychological and emotional impacts of sexual abuse on children from healthyplace.com, www.healthyplace.com, and you can go and check that out for yourselves. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We got about a minute left, and I just hope you all have a really good day and take care of yourselves. Make sure you just keep reaching out and keep that hope alive. Realize that there is help and there's hope out there, and we have to be responsible for reaching out. Most people won't reach out to us as they don't know what we've been through, and so it's very important to not suffer in silence and just sit there on your own. You want to reach out and make and get some help and make some connections with people that can really help us move along in our healing. The way that we should be, right, in a nice forward direction and get help, right? So important. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I just love you all so much. I have so many friends in Australia and the UK and Canada and the US that are just tuning in all the time, and I just love you all so much. And you have no idea, I think about you all the time, and I just hope that you guys are doing well and everything is going well in your lives. And thank you so much for being part of my life. I really appreciate it, and I just love you all very much. And so take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you later. I won't be back on tonight, but I'll be back on tomorrow morning, one child abuse survivor to another, same time, 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And until then, be good to yourselves and have a good couple of days. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.